I think it's time we blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
So, we're back. Blind Drunk returns. It's been a little while. We saw off Donald Trump and his minion, Jeffrey Robinson. That was his name, right? Jeffrey Robinson?
Yeah.
They've been vanquished. Trump Tower was laid low, and we emerged victorious from the rubble.
Not unscathed, but...
Yeah. And we're delighted to bring you a very special treat. A return from an old friend.
May he rest in peace.
Yes. R.I.P. Shot up the arse. Killed. Famously. The bullet didn't touch the side. We're delighted to bring you in memoriam his post-mortem efforts.
Yeah.
It's Ben Shapiro. What's Fair and Other Short Stories.
2 other short stories.
Yeah, very short stories.
Yes. To even call them short stories
very
is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, well, in the same way that calling Ben Shapiro a short man is very generous. So, yeah, we're delighted to bring you this next chapter in the saga of Ben Shapiro. I should say it's enormously hot.
Yes.
Very, very hot, so excuse us while we melt to death in front of you. But I hope that our minds will be stimulated and our hearts inflamed by the wonderful words of the... Maybe he's not officially the Poet Laureate, but he's very much the People's Poet Laureate.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Ben, does he have a middle name?
I'm sure he does, yeah.
We're delighted to bring you this incredible piece of art from the mind of one Benjamin Aaron Shapiro.
I've got to be honest, I'm a bit disappointed.
Yeah,
I mean, it suits him in that it's a dull, boring name. No
Yeah.
offence to anyone called Aaron, sorry about that.
Yeah.
That's probably quite rude, isn't it?
Yeah, what a really cool thing for you to have just said.
Yeah. Well, I thought it's something like fucking Ozymandias or something, do you know what I mean? Like...
Mozart.
Yeah, Wolfgang.
Benjamin Wolfgang Shapiro. So yes, we have our famous grouse, a drink that is actually named after Ben Shapiro.
And I have a tiny little beer, because, well, Ben Shapiro is a tiny little man, isn't he? So.
And what did you call it again?
A Ben Shapiro.
Fantastic. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump right in to What's Fair by Benjamin Wolfgang Shapiro.
Well, I could see that he wasn't a large man. I could tell that he wasn't too tall. I judged him to be about 5'3", and his voice was a soft Texas drawl.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Okay. Well.
Hello, darkness, my friend.
We're jumping right in at the deep end with What's Fair?
And a great question as well, you know. What is fair?
What is fair? What's fair? What's fair to do with Ben Shapiro?
Yeah. What, if anything, is fair about Ben Shapiro? His continued existence? Certainly not. His wife's ability to sleep with every man within a 40-mile radius of his home? Certainly. Absolutely fair.
I've always thought of myself as a fair man. That's all I ever wanted. What was fair? When the ploughing was done and when it was time for supper, all I wanted was the same as what everybody else got. Not more, not less. Fair's fair, I always say.
This, honestly, to me, immediately sounds like the opening lines of fucking Anders Breivik's movie. Like, fuck me. Jesus Christ.
I would love to watch Ben Shapiro plough a fucking field.
Yeah, that would be fucking lit. God.
I remember a time when I was a kid, Dad gave me and Jim Christmas presents. He gave Jim a wristwatch and he gave me a hunting knife. Boy, was Jim taken with that wristwatch. He'd wear it around every day, rain or shine. Always careful to keep it clean, to keep it wound. If he scuffed it up, he'd buff that scruff right out.
Oh, that's so scruff, motherfucker. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, boys. Bang! And the dirt is gone.
Hi, I'm Ben Shapiro.
Hi, Benjamin Wolfgang Shapiro here.
Buff and the scruff is gone.
He'd spend hours with a handkerchief, spitting on it and rubbing.
We're still doing that to watch.
I can't believe I've got to read this early on. You know what I mean? He'd spend hours with a handkerchief, spitting on it and rubbing it, spitting on it and wiping it until it looked brand new.
Now that's fair. That's what I call fair.
I didn't really like my hunting knife. I wasn't big like Jim then. It wasn't until later that I hit my growth spurt.
Yeah, sure you did. He's doing it again with like he did with Hawthorne, where it's like he's a giant bear of a man.
Oh, fuck me.
God, all this talk of polishing and spurting. God damn, that's fair.
But Dad kept after me to try it out, and I wanted so bad to please him, so I headed out to the woods to see if I could catch something.
Don't say a fucking word.
Sure enough, I found me a rabbit. He well should have spelt rabbit with a W.
He's hunting rabbit.
When I pounced for him though, he was faster than I was, and he skittered away like his tail was on fire. So I chased him, and I finally cornered that old rabbit in a rocky little dead end. But he was too smart for me. He charged straight at me. I'm not surprised there, that's fair. The rabbit is blatantly too smart for Ben.
Yeah, just batters the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Gets
I
the
chased
knife off
after,
him.
I chased after
Does
it,
it?
but it was bigger than me.
I looked up into his hate-filled eyes.
He charged straight at me, and before I knew it, he'd gone right between my legs, like that ball Buckner missed in the 86 series. Well, I turned around, and there was the rabbit, sitting there, staring at me, like he was laughing. And I got so mad that I took that hunting knife, and I threw it at him, like James Coburn in The Magnificent Seven. Just about took his head off. But the rabbit moved like lightning. He was gone. I heard a plunk from a creek that ran through the woods. The knife was gone too. When I got back home that night, I was too embarrassed to tell Dad what happened to that knife. But the next morning, when Jim got up, he found that his watch was dented, and he couldn't buff that out.
It was the rabbit. The rabbit came back.
I met Emily that is, when I was a senior in high school.
Ellen
Ellen.
Hawthorne.
Oh.
Ellen. Emily. Big guy. He had his great. Do you think this is a prequel to True Legion?
It probably, yeah, it sounds like it, doesn't
like
it?
to
Yeah.
me, yeah. Big Jim. Big Jim. Jesus Christ. Oh, the Ben Shapiro extended universe. Wow, it's incredible. I'll have to do a big crossover event soon.
Just like Marvel's
like
The
the
Avengers.
Russian superhero movie, The Guardians. It'd be just like that.
She was just about the cutest thing you've ever seen. Strawberry blonde with a knockout body and a button nose. Fucking Ben Shapiro, mate. He's fucking Norman Bates.
Yeah,
That's
he
what
really
Ben
is,
Shapiro
isn't he?
reminds me
Yeah.
of. He's Norman Bates. Blue eyes too, like a miniature Britney Spears. Miniature Britney Spears. She was on the cheerleading team. By then, I'd hit that growth spurt I mentioned, and I was a big burly kid, the fullback on the team. I was barreling kids over, I mean steamrolling them, and coach said I was a sure thing for All-State. The minute I laid eyes on Em, I knew she was the girl for me. I knew she liked me too, you see. She wasn't the first girl I'd ever gone out with. When you're the star fullback on your high school football team in a small town like Jefferson, there are plenty of girls after you, looking for some...
This is so pathetic.
Yeah,
Such obvious fantasising from Ben Shapiro.
One night after the game, me and M got to talking. I love how he talks like a fucking,
He's this folksy old, good old boy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Kentucky.
this is Ben Shapiro.
We got to flappen our jaws.
She looked up at me with those big eyes, through her eyelashes. I could see she'd combed them special for me. She lived in a nice area of town, and I lived near the fields, so we had to walk past my house to get to hers. As we walked by, I pointed at our house. It's like it's written by a child sometimes as well. I know. Yeah, it probably was, yeah.
I don't know when this was written, to be honest, but yeah, this is very, very childlike. But then again, like, you know,
True Allegiance was
is
as well,
just
yeah,
as
exactly,
well,
yeah.
This is very much the same
Style,
relationship
like, as
Brett and Ellen.
Yeah,
like, it's
yeah,
exactly
it's-
the
yeah.
same. Actually, what is Ben Shapiro's wife's name?
It's got to be Emily and Ellen, right?
Yeah.
So, Ella.
I'm afraid it doesn't start with an E.
Oh,
I think Ben has got some...
Ben's been stepping out. She batted those eyelashes and told me she'd love to see the house. Could I show her around? She didn't have to ask me twice. It's as if this ever happened to Ben Shapiro. We walked up to the door and I took her in my arms. And that's when Jim opened the door. He was back from State, where he was studying agricultural engineering. And he looked at me, laughing with his eyes, and said, "Hey brother, I'm home." When I turned back to introduce Em, she was looking at him. They were married 6 months later. Oh, maybe this did happen to me.
Maybe this wasn't sci-fi. It's not a fantasy. I mean, it's very much a modern Cain and Abel story.
Very much. Very much.
I would be shocked if it wasn't easily as influential as that story has been. People now, we say Cain and Abel, then it's going to be Big Jim and unnamed protagonist. Unnamed author insert.
The next summer, Dad died in an accident.
Yay!
There was much rejoicing. Mum was walking around like a ghost, and the farm was going to ruin. Jim and Em came home to help take care of Mum and the farm. Jim took over the master bedroom with Em, and Mum moved into Jim's old room. I stayed where I'd always been. What's fair? It was pretty terrible to be around that house, what with Mum haunting it, so I spent most of my
It's haunted. Ben Shapiro's haunted mother. Cucked Shapiro and his haunted mother.
So I spent most of my extra time in the weight room at school. So again, like you say, such an obvious fantasy fulfillment thing where it's like, I'm actually a really big, tough boy and I can lift heavy weights.
I was on the football team and everyone loved me, but it's still the psychological damage that he's incurred over his life can't help but come out.
Exactly,
through it anyway.
It's like,
So he can't just write a story in which everything goes right for him. The true horror. It's literally, this is, you know what this is, don't you? This is literally Lost Highway. This is literally Lost Highway. He invents a fantasy version of himself for everything to go right, and his worst nightmare comes true yet again. At the end of this book, he's going to magically transform the desert into Ben Shapiro. Mystery man's going to chase after him with a video camera.
And your name? What the fuck is your name?
And Ben Shapiro, this is The Ben Shapiro Show.
I really hope that's how it ends. I mean, to be fair, the last book of his that we read ended with a fucking nuclear explosion.
Yeah, and Trump Tower went exactly how we wanted to. That went very David Lynch as well. So.
Fuck you, man.
It was pretty terrible to be around the house, what with Mum haunting it. So I spent most of my extra time in the weight room at school, bulking up for next year. I didn't like to be near Mum. It made me feel depressed inside.
Made me feel sad in my heart.
In this whole long
You started wearing a cowboy hat, riding the trails.
One night, I was downstairs watching TV when I saw the water dripping through the ceiling. It turns out that Mum was in the bathtub, her head under the water, not breathing. I'd learned some basic mouth-to-mouth, and I was able to get her breathing again, but she was never the same after that. Now Jim and Em and I had to help her get to the bathroom, shower herself, feed herself. And that fall, starting for State, I blew out my knee. There went the scholarship offer to State. I bawled like a baby. Not because it hurt, because it just wasn't right. What's fair? I mean, the fact that it's like the fucking whole short story is literally him bitching about it. No, it's not fair, it's not fair.
Joe, it's an object lesson for the lefties in personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Oh, you think your life's hard? And you just can sit there and complain about it because bad things happen to you? You need to take responsibility like Big Jim did.
Yeah, you need to strap on your cowboy hat.
You need to come around and fuck my wife like Big Jim did.
Em was like a saint. She took care of Mum and me, and she made sure we got what we needed.
She shot them both.
Jim worked the farm, and he'd come back at night, and Em would have dinner all ready for him. Jim used me mostly for field work. I thought it was pretty cush of him to sit there in the air-conditioned office and make the decisions while I sweated, but there wasn't much I could do to complain. He'd been to college. He knew his stuff. We got along like that for a few years. Things hummed along, or I guess moseyed along is more like it, until Jim had his idea.
Say, for the sake of argument, that I am a lonesome cowboy, and I want to mosey on down the Montana cattle trail with my dearest pony, Old Fred, as my only companion. Would that not be perfectly logical for me to do so, after I've been repeatedly cocked by my own wife?
The mailman, the pool boy, the tennis coach, Cardi B,
Bernie Sanders.
My own bedridden mother. I mean, at this point, is there anyone who hasn't slept with Ben's wife?
I don't know.
Oh dear.
Em, Tommy, you won't believe this. Hold on, said Em. Mum's drooling. She wiped at Mum's mouth while Jim babbled onto her. The plough is just not aerating the ground, baby. He whipped out a piece of sod from his pocket.
Just in his pocket.
It's his pocket sod.
Perhaps you'd like a piece of sod at this trying time.
Look at how dense it is. Look how there isn't any oxygen getting in there.
God, for once Ben wasn't the densest sod in the room. Cheers, folks.
Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. What if there were a plough that was even finer about aerating the ground? My God, we could feed the entire world with machinery like this. Make grain cheap as dirt. My head was spinning and I wasn't paying attention. I don't think Em was either. She was wiping at Mum's mouth, and I have to admit, I couldn't take my eyes off of her.
His mum. Drooling mother.
Now he was excited again, the energy coming off him like the buzz in the air after a lightning strike, and he was grabbing Em around the waist and singing little songs to her. Then he came around and gave me a hug around the neck. What a sleeper hold, Ben. He's got a rear naked choke. Tommy, he said, we're gonna be rich. Tommy Shapiro.
Tommy Shapiro, wow.
As much time as he had spent in the office, he was now spending it in the barn, messing with our mechanical plough. Every time I'd go in there, he'd be underneath the thing, a hammer or a wrench in his hand, bashing away at the thing. The finances went to the dogs. One time the mortgage man came down the road and asked if we needed more time on the payment. We didn't. Jim had just forgotten to pay him. And with Jim out of control, everything spun out of control. Soon Em was having to take care of the finances, which meant that I was having to take care of Mum, and I was still working the fields. One day it was hot as blazes outside. I was out in the fields and Jim was in the barn, cool as a cucumber. The heat was so soggy that the waves were coming up off the ground. Soggy heat. Ben Shapiro's latest action film. Soggy heat. I stopped for a moment to wipe off my forehead. That's when I looked up at the house. It was burning. I hollered at the top of my lungs for Jim to get in there and find out what the hell was going on. Jim didn't answer. Silence from the barn. I busted into the house like I was breaking through a defensive line and rammed my way upstairs. There was Mum in the bed and her sheet was on fire.
I couldn't stop looking at her. She was on fire.
Jimmy, I hollered, but it was Em who came to help me. She rushed in with a bucket of water and doused Mum and the bed. I grabbed an old dress and started whacking away at the fire.
I grabbed my mum's dress and started whacking.
I sat there panting for a minute. Mum was sitting there holding a box of matches and crying, and I started to get mad. I ran down the stairs and headed for the barn. Sure enough, Jim was under that plough again. It must have taken the bastard 5 solid minutes to notice me. When he did, he got out from under the plough, stood up, gave a kind of little smile, and asked what was wrong. And I knocked him flat on his ass. Listen, Jim, you've been king of this place for our whole life, but I have had enough of it. I want my piece. He looked at me and I could see he really didn't understand what was going on. Here was this smart guy, and all of a sudden he was playing stupid.
Sorry, what?
Here was this smart guy, and all of a sudden he was playing stupid. I'm out there busting my hump to bring in the bread, and you're sitting here underneath this damn machine all day long, tinkering with nothing. He stood up and stared at me. The vein in his forehead was popping out. Tommy, he said, you don't do anything of importance around here. You think I need you to run this place? I could hire a field hand for 1/4 of the price. I'm doing it out of charity for you. Still, even though you're sullen and you're lazy and you're ungrateful and you think somehow I've cheated you. When this thing makes us $1 million, I'm planning on sending you back to college so you can make something of yourself. But if you want to leave, you pick up and you get the hell out. I left. When I looked back, he was under that plough again. About a week later, I heard something stir in the house in the middle of the night. I figured maybe it was Mum, so I slipped on my pants and slept.
So I slipped out of my pants and went looking for her. So are we sure this wasn't written by Boris Johnson?
I figured that maybe it was Mum, so I slipped on my pants and stepped into the hallway. Mum's light was out, but the light from downstairs, the kitchen, was on. I could hear Jimmy snoring in the other room. It rattled the door to his room a little. I tiptoed downstairs, and as I got closer to the kitchen, I could hear the sniffling. I nudged open the door, and sure enough, Em was sitting at the table with her head in her hands. Here we go. I sat down next to her and asked her what was wrong. I didn't want any of this, she said. Her snot was dripping a little, but she looked as beautiful as ever. She was wearing her robe and it was open just a little at the top. I could see her breathing. I wanted to leave. I didn't want to have to take care of Mum or be a farmer's wife or watch my man start to lose his mind from being pent up in this little cage of a town. She looked so beautiful with the tears in her eyes dripping down her face. I reached over and wiped them off with my big meaty hand.
Big meaty claws!
What did you say, punk? Big, meaty claws!
What the fuck? Oh, the way he writes is so creepy and stupid.
I reached over with my big meaty hand. I sat down, taking care not to sit on my massive cock.
My massive hog.
Do you remember when I first brought you here? Of course, she said. That's when I first met Jimmy. I stumbled for the right words. You know, I had a crush on you. Do you remember we almost... A frightened look crossed her face. No, she finally answered. I liked you a lot, Tommy, but never like that. That struck me hard. Sure you did, I said. If Jimmy hadn't been home. I liked you a lot, Tommy, she said again, but I liked a lot of guys. It was different with Jimmy. I put my hand out and touched her arm.
Yeah, that's what she's
That's what she's... Yeah.
Oh, God.
It didn't make any sense, but she pulled away. I got up and walked out of the house. Then I ran. I found myself in the woods. It was dark, all right, but I'd been in those woods many times, so I could see.
That's not how that works. What the fuck?
The woods had grown over since I was a kid, and I stumbled on some tree roots, scraped up my arms pretty bad, cursed my own stupidity. How could I have said that to Em? Humiliated myself like that. How could she say that to me? She knew she was lying to me, and to herself. I remembered holding her in my arms, and I remembered Jimmy's smiling, smart face, and her eyes turning up to meet his. He's gonna murder him. He's gonna kill them all.
He's gonna put a dent in his watch.
Yes,
The whole thing.
The cold water rushing through my boots brought me back to reality.
Pissed himself.
I'd walked right into the creek and my feet were soaked. I'd be sloshing my way back home tonight, I thought. Then I saw it glinting there beneath a rock. It was like the movies. A beam of moonlight was hitting it just right. My hunting knife.
Held in the death claw of a rabbit. It flew at me.
Look! Jesus Christ!
I took it as an omen. It wasn't 2 days before Jimmy came running into the house around dinner time. Everything had been awkward in the house between me and Em, but I'm not sure Jimmy had noticed anything. Now he came rushing into the kitchen. His hands were covered in grease. "It works!" he whispered. Whispered? They came running in like... What?
I think what he means is like when you shout, whisper something like, "What?"
Yeah.
But whisper
He
is just
whispered.
not the way of conveying that. Runs in and throws over the door. What? Could you speak up?
Em looked confused, but Jimmy grabbed me by the arm. "Come on, kid," he said. "This is our fortune." He led me to the barn. He stood next to the machine. "Now, Tommy, I want you to look real closely. Watch what I do. We're going to have to sell these up and down the country, and I'm going to need your help. You can be my sales deputy. You hit this button," he said, "and that gets the motor going. Now, look underneath." I squatted and saw a whole new-fangled blade system underneath the plough.
I squatted, shouted. I felt the warm water rushing through my boots.
It was jumping and shaking in a queer way. That aerates the soil better. You don't have to know how it works, you just have to know that it does. That's convenient, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's a very convenient
to the author.
He hopped over to me like a jackrabbit and grabbed me by the arms.
Oh, see, he's very clever. He just compared his brother to a
the
jackrabbit.
rabbit, yeah.
It's the rabbit, the knife. Brilliant.
Kiddo, we're all set from here to the flood. You're a junior partner in the firm and we're headed right to the top. His smile was infectious. I could feel myself smiling too. And then the knife was up under his ribs.
Wow, okay. I didn't think it was going to be as quick as that, but there you go.
Ben Shapiro don't fuck around,
Yeah,
man.
he's the king of subtlety.
He looked so confused. For a minute, I was confused too. Then the blood started to gurgle from his mouth, and I pushed him back, and the machine was still bucking and shaking. And his legs went out from under him, and before he could say or do anything, my foot came out from under me and kicked him in the ribs, and he grunted, and he rolled under that machine he loved, and the ground was covered with his blood. He didn't say anything, he didn't scream, but M did when I came in the house, covered with his blood. Jesus Christ!
He's great at endings. Like,
Yeah,
that's 2 for 2.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, the whole rest of it was shit, but that was fucking like...
mulched his brother
Like
with
the
a
kids,
fucking
like-
plough.
After the funeral, the police came to see me, but there was nothing to say about it. He'd been mashed up by that machine, so there was no evidence. They just said it was tough for me to go through this, and now I was responsible for Mum and Em and asked what I would do. And I told them that was okay. I had a way to take care of things. The plough.
The plough must be fair.
That afternoon, I drove over to the big agricultural machinery store to see the boss, Mr. Ebson. I told him about our new specially aerating mechanical... Oh, yeah, he's not going to kill him, is he? He's obviously going to sell his brother's plough. And, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to usurp
Yeah,
his
yeah.
brother's position. Yeah, it's very Oedipal.
Yes. His eyes lit up. He asked if he could come out and see it. I told him I'd give him a ride. When we got...
Hang on.
Be Ben Shapiro.
Yeah. Off to the nut house. To be nutted. You like that one, did you?
Swallowed it, put it fucking bubbles.
Oh, that was the closest I think we've come, yeah. Someday I'll fucking get you.
After the nuts to be nutted. When we got to the barn, I didn't even hesitate. It was quiet in there, which I wasn't used to, but I knew that my fortune was lying inside, and I knew that all I needed to do was hit the little red button. Now watch if you please, sir, Mr. Ebson, I said in my best fancy voice. You're about to see the machine that will revolutionise American agriculture. And I hit the button, and nothing happened. I could feel the sweat start up under my collar. Hold on, Mr. Ebson, I said. I got down on my hands and knees and I crawled underneath the machine that had killed my brother.
God, are you fucking kidding me? Is a rabbit gonna jump out and push the fucking button while he's under it?
It was still rust-coloured from his blood. I hadn't cleaned it off yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
You're going to show it?
Just go and bring someone to the scene of the crime.
What's all that blood? Oh, that's my brother's.
That's where I
killed
killed
him.
my brother.
I don't know what Jimmy had done under there, but it didn't look like any normal plough. So I hit it a couple of times with a wrench, then got out and smiled. Let me try again, Mr. Ebson. I hit the button again, and again nothing happened. Mr. Ebson looked at me and shrugged. Well, he said, when you get it working again, come and let me know. I think we can do business. And sorry about your brother. He was a genius with those things. Then he was gone. I walked back to the house. It was empty, except for Mum. Em was gone too. And I'll tell you right now, it wasn't fair. None of it. I just didn't have the breaks Jimmy had. I wasn't born smart like him. I didn't get the education. I didn't get the luck of the girl. So now I'm sitting here messing with this damn contraption and I've got Jimmy's rusty blood on my hands. And Mum's in the house, waiting for me. And the house is awful quiet.
What? So it didn't... So nothing happened. Oh come on!
It's
you could have at least had a fucking like Tales of the Unexpected fucking ending where I don't know he gets turned into a bee or something. Come on, like give us that much at least.
The fact is, man, it's just a cautionary tale about us bloody lefties always crying and moaning because I didn't get it's like, Ben, that's not what people are talking about when they talk about the inherent
problems in society.
When we talk about unfairness in society, we don't mean that the girl I like fancied my brother instead. We mean that cunts like you hoard all the wealth and opportunity for yourself, so cunts like us don't get it.
Yeah, especially considering that he's literally literally a no-talent piece of shit
Yeah.
who gets to publish
Yeah.
books like this because he can whore himself out to rich
Yeah,
cunts
exactly.
to muddy the waters and spread lies on their behalf.
Ben, you're just an idiot. Like, you're
Yeah.
just some radio fucking talk show dickhead. That's all you are.
Yeah, that and a liar and a cuck. So, what's our final verdict on What's Fair, the titular story from his short story collection?
Well, personally, I thought it was shit. Didn't
Okay.
really work for me.
For me, I would give it 1 out of a possible 5.
Dumpy beers.
Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro.
Shapiro. Yeah, I'd give it one
Shapiro.
Shapiro out of a possible 5. Far too few elaborate mechanical air plough accidents.
Yeah, he really should have. I feel like once he'd written that part in, he should have gone back to the beginning and essentially changed the entire story.
Yeah,
so it
just
was
be
basically
a
a
series
story.
of grisly plough accidents.
Plough murders. The plough keeps he takes.
Yeah, what a fucking idiot.
We're book reviewers. We're literary reviewists.
Yes. Welcome to BookTube.
So yeah, I just want to point out at this point, this book, do you know whether it actually exists in, like, book
No,
form?
I don't know if you can actually purchase it physically. I don't think you can. I can't imagine anyone would want to print the 40 pages or whatever this fucking thing actually is. It probably cost more than you could sell it for.
Yeah. Like a little glossy pamphlet. What's fair? Like, what's fair is when I buy a book of short stories, I expect a collection of short stories. 3 does not count as a collection.
Yeah.
Like, if someone had 3 stamps, you wouldn't call it a stamp collection, would you? Do you know what I mean?
So, wow, I mean, after that first go-round, I think we all need a break from that absolute masterclass in literary fiction. Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say I have a rare treat for everyone here today, which I'm delighted to bring to you all. This is something that I've been working on for a little while now, put a lot of hard work into this, and I think it's time that I shared it with the world.
Well, what more perfect platform could you have?
Exactly. I'm happy to force this on to others. So what I've been doing is writing some Ben Shapiro fan fiction. After True Allegiance, I think we can all agree True Allegiance is one of our favourite books.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I was really disappointed, obviously, that we may never see a True Allegiance 2. So I thought I'd have a go at that myself.
Oh, fuck.
So I've been writing under a pseudonym because I don't want, obviously we have legions of adoring fans. We're big names in BookTube on the literary review circuit. So obviously I don't want to be using my very famous, prestigious name to get book sales and things like that. So I've started writing under a pseudonym so that I can get success.
Very humble of you.
Thank you. And so obviously, like Ben taught us in What's Fair, I want to do it the right way.
Yeah.
So
It'd be easy for you to just murder me and shove me into a plough.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy.
Effortless. It wouldn't faze me. It wouldn't bother me. Morally, physically, it would be no task for me. And so I've started writing under the pseudonym Tom of Finland Clancy, which, for me, it captures that kind of Special Forces operator tier homoeroticism that I'm going for. And that I really feel that Ben was going for as well. So the working title of the book is Sleeping Giant. It's got that sort of True Allegiance, Sleeping Giant.
Yeah. It could be a code name for
Exactly,
a battle operation.
yeah, exactly. And it's kind of reminiscent of Ben himself.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here
Well,
it
I'm not ready to start yet.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were.
No, well, I'll let you know when I'm ready. Jesus Christ. Just remember how easy it would be for me, Joe. Just remember. You think of that plough. Think of that plough I've got. Now, this is a novel that's been accurately described as a blockbuster debut thriller ripped straight from the headlines by Brad Thor, #1 New York Times bestselling author of Code of Conduct, which itself was described in a 1-star Goodreads review by Carlos Viola as very, very poor, a total waste of time and money. So, a glowing endorsement, I'm sure you'll agree. I'm really proud now to present to you a brief excerpt from the opening of my latest book, a spiritual successor to Ben Shapiro's True Allegiance, Sleeping Giant.
Just like to say I'm very happy that our lovely fans get to,
Yeah, you're the first.
to enjoy this as
Yeah,
well.
the first people to see this, so
You poor bastards.
you're very welcome. So I'll just give you a brief summary, the ad copy, to really sell you on this book, and then we'll dive straight into the meat and potatoes of Sleeping Giant. The Sleeping Giant's meat and potatoes. When Bolivian-backed BLM sleeper agents attack a Little League baseball game in the heart of Middle America, they have no idea that they have awoken a sleeping giant. Local great guy Beanie Shapini may look like a physically... Come on, Joe, I need to get at least a few lines. I know I'm a great writer, but I need the time, We'll be here all day. Local great guy Beanie Shapini may look like a physically fit, well-read and sexually potent pillar of his community, and that's because he is. But what these Antifa super soldiers couldn't know is that Bean also came top of his class in military, and he eats asses like them for breakfast. Starring Staff Gunnery Master Rear Chief Admiral Beanie Shapini, youngest cabin boy in United States Air Force history. First man on the moon. This story will take you on a roller coaster ride of emotions and erections, from the peaceful heart of a once glorious republic to the dark festering rot that lies at the center of democratically elected South American governments left unchecked by CIA death squads. A story that has been described as, quote, a terrifying read that brilliantly lays bare the chilling future we all fear is headed right for us, end quote. Brad Thor, #1 New York Times bestselling author of Code of Conduct, a book itself described in a 1-star Goodreads review by JLB as, quote, a poor story and read. The main character is a very irritating chauvinist, as I assume is the author. I didn't finish the book, gave up about 60% of the way through, end quote. That's glowing endorsement, I'm sure you'll agree. Part 1. The Day the Laughter Died. Staff Gunnery Master Rear Chief Admiral Beanie Shapini looked down at his oversized novelty sippy cup of 2.5% ABV American domestic beer. Empty. Bean was a bear of a man. 5'2" in his bare feet and 98 pounds in his underwear. His tightly cut greying black hair gave him the look of a Victorian plague victim, and his ghoulish face was carved from jelly. He looked up at the field of play just in time to watch Bean Jr. hit a perfect baseball hit, knocking the ball far away from himself and scoring a number of home runs. The home crowd erupted into applause, much of which was no doubt intended for Bean himself, a show of their respect, love, and indeed arousal. Bean soaked it all in, swishing the dregs of his beer around in his sippy cup before putting the cup down on the floor between his feet, lowering the cup slowly at first, then with mounting confidence allowing gravity and the kinetic force generated by his bones and body to force contact between the bottom of the cup and the concrete surface of the floor below. That action complete, he looked around at the smiling faces. As he did so, he was reminded of the time he founded the Black Civil Rights Movement back in his own youth, with his good black friend El Haj Malik El Shabazz, otherwise known as Malcolm X. Brackets, born Malcolm Little, May 19th, 1925 to February 21st, 1965, close brackets, was an African-American Muslim minister and human rights activist who was a popular figure in the civil rights movement. He is best known for his time spent as vocal spokesman for the Nation of Islam, as well as his lifelong advocacy for black empowerment and his criticism of the civil rights movement led by Martin Luther King Jr. The crowd cheered again, and that was when he saw them sauntering onto the field. Young black men dressed in unconventional attire. He knew right then and there that this could only end in blood. A ripple of fear ran through the crowd, and they instinctively drifted towards the paternal protection of Daddy Shapini. He watched, a stunned fury pulsing through his muscular arse and thighs. Yes, go on. Oh, fuck me.
Oh, fuck, that was even closer, that was...
As I saw you pick the fucking ball, I was like, here it comes. A stunned fury pulsing through his muscular arse and thighs as the vicious communists lifted their banners of hate. Defund the police, screamed one. Justice for victims, howled another. Defund the police, Bean thought to himself. Now imagine they were saying, defund food for starving babies. Would you still agree with that? It really makes you think. Ellen Shapini, Bean's considerably more imposing wife, watched in horror from near the dugout as a tall, shadowy figure emerged from the dark horde of at least 6 BLM militants approaching the cowering crowd of armed hundreds. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her woman's mind was not made for war. Bean Jr. watched in shock, dropping his beloved American baseball bat to the profaned American ground. A stirring and poignant image that, fully artistically rendered, would go great on the cover of this very book. The crowd gasped as the figure stepped into the light. His Latin features were underscored by a thick socialist moustache. Nicolas Maduro being choked, coughed, and said all at the same time. Nicolas Maduro Moros is a Venezuelan politician and president of Venezuela since 2013. Beginning his working life as a bus driver, Maduro rose to become a trade union leader before being elected to the National Assembly in 2000. He was appointed to a number of positions under President Hugo Chavez and was described in 2012 by the Wall Street Journal as, quote, the most capable administrator and politician of Chavez's inner circle, end quote. Maduro and his gang of alt-left comrades laughed communistically as one. Bean could hardly stomach it. He had known all along that the January 6th insurrection had been an Antifa false flag attack against the very heart of the greatest nation on earth. But even he couldn't have guessed how far Old Glory had fallen. Maduro, Morales, the guy who replaced Castro, I forget his name, they were all in on this together, planting the seeds of Black Lives Matter to destroy the Grand Republic from within. No doubt there would be a Chinese/Russian flag flying over Washington within days. Not if I've got anything to say about it, Bean said aloud, patriotically. Bernie, you son of a bitch, I'll kill you for this. In a single powerful yet fluid and almost sexual motion, Beanie drew his 2 service Mac 11s from his twin ankle holsters and went to work. In one of the smoke-filled rooms of the Washington, D.C. power brokers, a young POC transgenderist Maoist Democrat talked hurriedly in hushed tones into their primitive mobile phone. Yes, Madam President, it's all going exactly to plan. A moment later, there was a feminine chuckle. Then the voice on the other end spoke. This country owes you a great debt. I can't thank you enough, comrade they. Your help in organising the #resistance has been invaluable. We're one step closer to achieving our goal of destroying the family, and also God. The Zapatista managed to blush. No, I should be thanking you, you absolute girl boss. Well, you and your reckless socialist borrowing that didn't even try and take simple repayment plans into account. Not to mention once we opened the borders to completely unchecked illegal immigration. It's genius, the fascist socialist shrieked. Oh, please. It was the lady president's turn to blush now. Undermining the work of millions of hard-working, proud American patriots. It was an absolute pleasure. She laughed girlily. No, no, said the treacherous young gay disabled senator. The pleasure has been all mine, President Ocasio-Cortez. All mine. And there you have the opening chapter of Sleeping Giant by Tom of Finland Classic.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that was better than any of the books we've actually read on this channel. So, yeah.
So there you have the spiritual sequel,
Yeah.
True Allegiance.
We're in the wrong business, man.
Yeah, see how he is here?
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like Ben Shapiro and Boris Johnson. Because they're such simple-minded fuckwits themselves, they believe that, no, only a really, really smart boy could write a book.
Yes.
Like, a lot of people would think that, and, you know, you could see why people would think that. Yeah, it must be hard to write a book. Hey, you know what I mean? To sit there and put all the research in and to spend hours and hours and hours, fucking weeks and months
exactly.
writing this.
And that's where the trick lies.
Yeah,
You don't do any of the research, and you spend about 10 minutes writing the fucking thing. Voila! So, if you liked the adventures of Beanie Shapini and Sleeping Giant, and his fight against the cultural Marxist takeover of his proud, throbbing republic, then, let us know. Maybe we'll publish it on, Amazon fucking, I don't know, we'll glue pages of it on the inside of phone boxes for you to find, I don't know. Whatever shit fucking Ben Shapiro has to do to get his fucking garbage read. Right, so there you go, that was Sleeping Giant.
Incredible. A terrifying insight into the future, which seems almost inevitable at this point.
Yeah.
Beanie Shapini.
His twin Mac-11s. I just imagine he's got trousers, this massive fucking giant. Either that or he wears shorts and they're literally just visible
completely
on his
fucking... As he walks, they're like flapping about.
Snap together like...
Holy shit.
Okay, so after that brief interlude, we've all got our R&R and we're ready to jump back in. So here we go. Ben Shapiro, short story number 2, From the Pit.
Yeah, you effing with some wet-ass P-word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet-ass P-word. Give me everything you've got for this wet-ass P-word. It continues along these lines. And it gets significantly significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar.
September 19. I am now just 5 days and a wake-up from the end of my term. Sorry, that was just such an awkward fucking sentence. I'll start that again. I am now just 5 days and a wake-up from the end of my term. It doesn't get any less awkward, sorry. Sorry, I tried, I really did. Okay, third time's the charm. I am now just 5 days and a wake-up from the end of my term, and I'm still alive. It's lonely work, ever since Phillips was killed. Didn't think I'd ever say this, but I miss him. I spent today traversing the caverns. Very few crobes. We've done a masterful job of taking them out. It's been weeks since the last wave of mites got Phillips. I still remember the wave, like giant malevolent spiders, their scaly tentacles reaching, squirming. Spiders don't have
scaly tentacles. They don't have scales or tentacles.
In what way were they spiders?
Shem, you're a fuck up on every level.
Ben, if you need help with your next book, please refer to the previous section and I'll be happy to fucking do it for you. Like giant malevolent spiders, their scaly tentacles reaching, squirming, their stench overpowering, Phillips firing his laser, but its power source dry, Phillips stumbling backwards, me firing, thinking of Amy, and then the mite was on him, sucking him dry, stripping the skin from his muscles with its massive pincers. Phillips screaming. But thinking about it makes me sick. You want to stop yourself before you think too hard about it. I never thought the territory could be so vast. Before the downsizing, the territory was no bigger than a large room. This is crap. This is fucking really bad.
It is,
Jesus Christ, this is like such a step down from the last one.
It is, actually, I agree, the last one was shit, but
moralising bullshit. But this is
really
badly written.
Crobes, for one thing, crobes. Ben, that's terrible. Usually, if I start reading something, I'll give it a chapter or something. Do you know? I'll give it as long as this fucking thing is, you know,
exactly.
before you decide, actually, no. But
no thanks.
This fucking thing, within a couple of sentences, you're just like,
first sentence.
No.
First sentence and he was done. He couldn't make it past the first fucking sentence.
It took you a few goes to prove it.
Exactly. Surprising no one. This is fucking terrible. Now, of course, it seems vast. Miles upon miles of endless caverns, followed by the drop-off. A cliff that feels hundreds of feet high, plunging down into a soft forest of polyester. It's nearly 7 o'clock. The light still burns above, but the climate is temperate. That's the good news about being an anti. At least the climate's always good. The power of indoor climate control. The whale is rumbling above. His thunderous voice is overpowering. Does he ever shut up? He's working on a transnational trade again. Something to do with steel and carbon manufacture. A stock trader could make a fortune by listening to him. But I'm just a simple guy. I just want to get home to Amy. It's just a complete repeat of the last one and the 2 years. That was the length of that damnable contract. I thought the money would... So we've got our first typo. I presume our first.
I didn't have any typos actually.
We don't know. It's hard to tell. He hides the typos by being a shit writer generally. I thought the money would enough. A guaranteed pension for life, an endless income, a nice house above the bay with the wind blowing off the sea, Amy in my arms. She warned me against this. She was right. I was wrong. But now it's nearly over. The reversal process begins in 2 days. It took them 3 days to get me down to this size.
It's shrunk the shrink rate. That's why Ben's so short. This is an
elaborate explanation. It'll take 3 days the other way too. They say it hurts, but at this point I wouldn't care if they had to skin me to get me home. The lights winked off now. Another day over. I'll pitch the halo and get some shut-eye. September 20. 4 days and a wake-up. I hate hunting in the dark, but that's what I'll have to do today. It's Saturday, so there'll be no light. Just the hurricane sound of the cleaning woman's vacuum. Wait, what the
Alright.
fuck? The mites are actual mites.
They're
Honey, I Shrunk the Kid.
Yeah.
So it's a sci-fi story about men being shrunk down in people's homes to fight microbial beings. What the fuck? This is the longest one as well.
Yeah, I know,
It's Saturday, so there'll be no light. Just the hurricane sound of the cleaning woman's vacuum. I could see a wave of mites today from inside my halo. To them, I just looked like another Krobe. I think they're coming from the ashtray. For an obsessive-compulsive clean freak, the ultimate clean freak, the whale's addiction to cigarettes is a weird one. But then again, he can afford the lung cleansing day after day. The whooshing that lifts the ash from his lungs. I pop on my night vision goggles and put on my boots. Then I step outside the halo, which automatically deflates to fit in my gear bag. The last mite turns around a nearby corner. I follow. When I get to the ashtray, the final ashes are still smouldering from his cigarette. It looks like a gigantic white tower at an angle. I've seen pictures of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's like that, but with the bottom end broken and trailing into black dust. A few sparks dance near the base.
I honestly, this is fucking embarrassing. I feel embarrassed to be in any way associated with this.
I mean, on the strength of this, I can see why he got a novel. The mites are all over the cigarette. All over it. They cover the top of the cigarette, swarm it, clawing at the chunks of the whale's saliva. The mites are above me. They haven't sensed me yet. I have a clear shot.
Sorry, it's something I've just sort of been mulling over. This is presumably like a sci-fi future where when you have a termite infestation, you hire this company who has guys who these agents who they shrink down and they send in to fight the termites fucking mano a mano. We have exterminators now who just go in with a spray and just kill them all. That's more efficient and better. Why would this be the future of it?
Yeah, it does seem like a noticeable downgrade from what we currently have. Especially considering that a man has been killed.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even a sure thing that they're going to win the fight, so the termites could win. And then you have to, pay again to get another couple of guys shrunk down.
Well, this is what I find really interesting about this story and the previous one, is they both contain, seemingly completely unbeknownst to the author, fairly distinctive anti-capitalist themes. The inability for them to care for the mother, the fact that they had to keep the mother here and couldn't provide any actual care for her, the fact that, he was a footballer and then he lost his shot at football and was completely fucked and had
that's
no
his
other
fault in
exactly,
Ben
rather
Shapiro's
than
version
actually address it, the fact that obviously he wanted to invent something that would improve his whole, it would improve the world's ability to in agriculture and growing food, and obviously there was the hilarious thing about we could feed the world even though we currently can feed the world, and capitalism neglects to do so for profit reasons. But in attempting to do that, he ends up almost losing the farm because he can't, it's one or the other basically. He has to neglect the running of the farm in order to do so and things like that. And then here we have, the workaday guy is now shrunk down in this most ridiculous position so that he can put his life on the line, so that a rich guy can avoid just having his house fumigated. And yet, I guess this will somehow have some right-wing moral at the end of it too.
Well, you shouldn't complain, you should just get killed by those
knuckle
termites.
down and get the job done. Know your place. Get shrunk down and to be eaten by termites for literally no reason. I take the first mite out with a single laser beam. Watch it plummet down the cigarette.
He's got a laser gun as well. He's such a child.
I take the first mite out with a single laser beam. Watch it plummet down the cigarette and smash into the table below, split in two. His writing is really bad. Before I have a chance to silently celebrate, though, the other mites, God, there have to be at least 200 of them, turn and face me. This is the moment where they're stunned. Before they realise what's happening, this is the moment for the laser grenade. What was that you were saying about him being a fucking child?
Oh, a laser grenade! A laser grenade is just a 3-year-old. How does that work? Is it like a disco ball? You throw it and it's all these...
Punk music starts playing. They all started circling it on fucking roller skates.
And then you shoot them.
Mercilessly gun them down. This is the moment for the laser grenade. I've done it 1,000 times already. So many times that it's a matter of course. But I haven't done it while hanging from a cigarette in the dark alone. I reach behind me into my gear bag, searching for the grenade. Damn it, I should have thought of this before firing on the herd. They're climbing down toward me now. Their great bulky frames picking up momentum as they plunge their claws into the body of the cigarette. They're covered in the crusted saliva of the whale, and their smell is overpowering. My hand closes around the grenade, but now the herd is closing. I can see the black maw of the lead mite opening as he chunks his way down the cigarette. I close my eyes and scream and fling it upwards. It's not a good throw. It seems to flutter in the air before gravity takes a hold of it. It reaches the top of the parabola, and it suddenly occurs to me that this damn thing could go off as it passes me on the way down. Of course, by that time, I'll be mite food. Then the mite reaches down with its pincers and gobbles it up. I count to 4, and the mite explodes outward, blowing a dozen of its repulsive brethren off the cigarette into the chasms below. The wave from the explosion almost blows me off the cigarette, but the belt holds me tight. But the second wave of mites is still coming. But the belt holds me tight. But the second wave of mites is still coming down for me. But the second wave of mites is still coming down for me. My only chance is that they panic. I can never make it down the cigarette in time to escape them. It's lucky he planned this all out and thought about it, but he just fucked up everything.
Well, a minute ago he'd done it 1,000 times, and now he just can't fucking even think which order to do it in.
Their beady eyes scope me out as they tiptoe almost daintily down the cylindrical tower, shattering light. It's a Saturday. What the hell is going on here? Somebody turned on the light and it's as bright as the brightest day.
And it's as bright as the brightest light.
Somebody turned on the bright light. It's as bright a light as the brightest light I've ever fucking... What? What am I talking about? Thank God for that. The mites hate the light, and they're scurrying down the cigarette butt, trying like hell to get to the darkness of the desk grooves. I shout in glee. I'm saved. Then I hear it, the voice of the whale, rumbling from above. He's gonna get fucking picked up and smoked. He's gonna get vored by this fucking grotesque
Boris Johnson. It finally crossed over.
The earth starts shaking beneath me as the whale searches for his cigarette, cursing. He always needs his cigarettes when he's under stress, and this one must be a doozy. Bang! He's opened the top drawer of his desk and slammed it shut, turning the air blue with invective. Boom! The entire desk shudders with the weight of his massive meaty fist.
That's like a meaty
He
fist.
loves a meaty fist right up him. I can see it from atop the cigarette, and it looks like an avalanche of human flesh, punctuated by thick black hairs on his knuckles, tree trunk thick. His use of language is...
Oh, yeah, right, yeah, his knuckles.
Terrible.
Tree trunk thick,
Yeah,
right.
end of sentence.
That's not how you... That's not how you speak English, man. Fucking Yoda.
Damn it, he says, and I look up. His broad, fat face stares down at me. It's like the moon, rising massive during harvest season. Massive and puffed and bloated and sweaty, just like the moon.
It's like the moon, yeah.
That sweaty
Also-
moon. Why is he looking at me? Then I realise what he's looking at, and it isn't me. Oh, God. I struggle frantically to unbelt myself from the cigarette. The belt's too tight though, and I can't work myself free of it. And then I'm hanging by my belt, horizontal, parallel with the earth, and I'm rising, falling backwards, sliding down the cigarette, the hook tearing tobacco out of the cigarette as I slide towards his fat, blubbery lips, specks of spit oozing from his gaping mouth. I try to stop myself grabbing at the surface of the cigarette, but the mites have left it slick, thick with their ooze mixed with the whale's spittle.
There are far too many fluids in this one. I like it.
So I told you, it's a fetish thing. The surface of the cigarette is getting hot now. I look behind me, and the damn thing is on fire. The blasted whale has gone and relit the butt. Hot ash begins sweeping beneath me, under the paper, as the whale breathes in, scorching my legs. But before I can worry about it, the whale takes an enormous puff. The sucking is like an unstoppable hurricane, drawing me towards its eye. Down, down I go, until I plunge into his open mouth.
How many sexual innuendos can you fill in a sentence without realising you're doing it? You know what I mean?
I retch again as I'm immersed in waves of his saliva, stinking of yesterday's food, a toxic mix of bile and phlegm.
That sounds disgusting as a meal. I wouldn't eat that.
No, I'd send it back.
Yeah, honestly, I'd complain about that.
I try to swim toward the surface of his mouth, but it's too far. I'll never make it before he shuts that blubbery hole forever, locking me in his body, swirling me down his throat and into his intestines. I told you, this is fetish. This is definitely a vor fetish thing.
He had a fucking massive erection by the time he was writing this.
Then I remember the halo. I rip it out of my gear bag and hit the button. It automatically inflates. I scramble inside the airtight space as the halo's buffeted on the waves of spit. Then the whale swallows. goes. The halo and I go flying backwards, down his throat, past the blimp of his uvula, down his thorax, into the vast blackness beyond.
I've got to say, I mean, disappointed might not be the right word, but I am disappointed in him in that, like, he's going for the whole shrunken down people, which is obviously a very far from original concept. And it's like, what's he going to do with them? Well, he's going to do what every other story about shrunken down people does. They get put into a human body. It's like,
They're like, the
cool.
one place that's...
Yeah.
The air pressure changes, and I fall into the simultaneous darkness of unconsciousness. September 21. I don't know what day it is. I assume it's 3 days and a wake-up. When I opened my eyes this morning, or is it afternoon, I seemed to be in an enormous dark cave, almost a huge, ugly veined dome. It must be the whale's stomach. The halo's caught near the top of the bean-shaped space. It's pink and slimy and ridged, except for two anomalies. A red hole filled with pus and blood, and an odd yellow patch, thick, pulsating like an enormous caterpillar. Thank God the halo caught me at the top of the stomach. They're going to need to find a way to extract me, though. The reversal process is set to start tonight, and while the whale's big, he isn't that big. He just fucking explodes out of the sky.
that'd be hilarious. I am fucking rooting for that.
Yeah. If they don't get me out of here, I'll tear right through his stomach wall and right through his abdomen. I'd better alert them. I reach into my gear bag and pick up the beacon. I hit it once. The light flashes bright, illuminating the stomach like an enormous palpitating monster. Then I hear Jensen, my former best friend, the guy I went to school with. For the first time since Phillips died, a human voice adjusted for pitch. I almost cry. Kemp, is that you? Over. Roger, Jensen. God, man, it's good to hear your voice. Now, where the hell are you? I'm in the whale. I'm in his stomach. Understood. What do you see? His stomach, Jensen. What the hell else would I see? I look around again. He has to be getting at something. Then it hits me all at once. That yellow mass. It's a tumor. The whale is dying. Suddenly thoughts are whirling through my brain almost too fast for me to keep up. I'm probably the only one outside his doctors who know. He runs $1 billion empire. His stock price would drop through the floor if the public knew he had months to live. I'm a wealthy man. But all I want to do is get home to my wife. Jensen, I say, you tell the whale that I don't want anything from him. All I want is to go home. Get me the hell out of here and I won't say a word about the tumor. Not a word. Affirm, Jensen. Affirm. God damn you, Jensen. The beacon goes dead. I haven't prayed since I was a child. I don't believe in God. No God would play the cosmic joke of letting the whale fall into so much wealth, then curse him with an obsessive-compulsive dislike of dust mites so strong that he'd spend half of that wealth developing the shrinking system and hiring duds like me to man it. It's all too absurd.
Yes, I quite agree.
No, I knew how fucking stupid this was when I wrote it. That means I'm actually a genius. Just listen to me. I whisper to the whale. He can't hear me, but somewhere beneath those layers of fat he's got to have a heart. He certainly has a stomach. Like an answer to my prayers, though, the beacon clicks on again. Jensen, I shout. Jensen! There's no answer. But the beacon's transmitting. I hear the beacon bumping around Jensen's pocket, and then from outside the whale, I hear the thump of a door opening, and from the beacon, the voices emerge. Jensen stammering. Sir, I have something you need to know. The whale, cool and collected, replies. So tell me, do you remember Kemp? No. Why would I? Sorry, I literally just reached up to turn the page with my hand. That was weird. No, the whale says. Why would I? I have thousands of aunties a year. Well, this one is in your stomach right now. I feel the halo jostle jarringly upward as the whale stands. Are you insane? He says. Then he would know. I know, says Jensen. But he says he'll never tell. He says he just wants to get back to his wife. The whale is silent. He sits again. His grumbling baritone makes my whole body rumble. No. That was my grumbling baritone.
That was very grumbly.
Jensen protests. He wouldn't lie to me, sir. I've known Kemp for a decade. Have you known Kemp in a situation like this, where a fortune could be at stake? Says the whale, his voice dangerously even. No, says Jensen. I shout into the beacon. I promise. I swear to God. I don't give a damn about the money. But nobody hears me. So how much time do we have? The whale asks. He's due to begin his reversal process tonight. Perfect. We must act quickly. Call the doctor. You know the one. Jensen swallows. I can hear it all the way across the room. Not even through the beacon. Sir, he says, that would be pure murder. What? Wait, whoa, hang on. Is this an abortion allegory? Oh my god. I just
I
saw this.
sincerely hope not, but I
Listen
have
to
the
this
feeling it
line.
is.
Oh no, surely not. That would be pure murder. Yes, the whale says, but it's my body. And what's in it is my purview. That's the law.
Yeah, this is.
Look it up.
Yeah.
But look it up after you call the doctor. Oh
Yeah.
my fucking god. I said, didn't I? He'll find a way to make this right wing. Oh my god. I cannot
It
believe
is, yeah.
this
it
is happening.
Fucking hell.
Oh my god. Fuck off. You little cunt. Get in fucking school. It's fucking 3:30 on a school day. You should just go back to school. You little cunt.